My name is Kenneth Lyle Miller. I was born in South Hadley Falls, Massachusetts, October 27, 1927. I actually was born at home in 1927 during the 1927 flood of the Connecticut River in South Hadley Falls. The flood was so severe that the doctor who lived on the other side of the river had to take a boat over to our house for the delivery. So it was an exciting time. I don't remember it, but I've been told many times about that story. At age 1, my mother, father, my brother, and I, we moved to Cleveland. I have one sibling. His name is George, and he was born in 1921, some 6 years prior to me. He was a pin setter. It was before the days of automatic pin setting, and it was duck pins back then. All of my family originated in Scotland. My grandmother was born in Brecon, and her husband, he was born in Dundee, and they got married in Brecon. They then had 2 children. My mother, Mabel, who was born in 1902, and Jean, my aunt, who was born in 1907. They then emigrated from Scotland to the United States. My grandfather became involved in the paper making industry. Through his life and some of my other family members' lives, they were all paper maker people. My father had been in Holyoke, Massachusetts, and my mother was in South Hadley. They were on opposite sides of the Connecticut River. South Hadley was a tiny little town with a few thousand people. Holyoke at that time was the paper mill city of the world. I'm told that she was very, very bright. After completing the 8th grade, my grandparents said we had to pull her out of school. She couldn't go to high school because we needed the money, and so at that age, which would be 14 maybe, she went to work in the Skinner silk mills and toiled during all of her high school years. And that's where she met my father. As a child, I was very, very straightforward and helpful because I grew up during the very serious days of the Depression. I used to stand in the bread lines waiting for day-old bread. My brother let me borrow his wagon so that I delivered, I had fixed customers and delivered the Saturday Evening Post and Life magazine. I felt very saddened that I couldn't learn more about my father and even about his upbringing, because I didn't see much of him again beyond the time that I was about age 6. He had been working in the aluminum factories, shoveling coal into the hot furnaces, making molten aluminum. So he didn't have a great life, I would think. Near the beginning of the Depression, they closed that aluminum factory, and so he went on to what was called the Works Project Administration, WPA, which developed under Franklin Roosevelt, where they did many, many good things in terms of building roads.
But not until the beginning of the Works program was it possible to initiate a general plan for the development of farm-to-market roads. This plan brings immediate improvement in local business and property values wherever a secondary road is completed. At last, the farmer finds it possible to reach his market over well-constructed, weatherproof roads. How big is the WPA road program? In its first 18 months of operation, the mileage end to end would have stretched 5 times around the earth.
The WPA, WPA, WPA. Now don't be a fool, working hard is passe. You'll stand from 5 to 6 hours a day. Sit down and joke while you smoke, it's okay. The WPA.
He spent most of his 1930s days in Cleveland, out in the kind of freezing weather during the winter time and hot weather during the summer, but he did always declare to me that it was better than the hot furnaces of the aluminum factories. He told me occasionally about his younger days. He was in World War I as a trooper, went off to France and was involved and told me some stories about that, but not too much. He didn't want to share any of the horrors of that, which I understand from reading later was a very terrible war in terms of hand-to-hand combat. So I really grew up during my high school years with my grandparents. I saw them 6 days a week, and I would see my mother 1 day a week. And so it was a longing period for me to have that 1 day with my mother. When I got a little older, I was able to go over to the Franz house and mow lawns, and so I got to visit with her then to some degree. My mother took care of and lived with the Franz family during those 4 or 5 years. And again, we would see her once a week, and that would be on a Thursday, where she would come back from Holyoke to South Hadley and visit with her parents, my grandparents, and me. It's a very warm feeling that I have for my mother. She dedicated her life to me, really. My grandfather, he was a great guy, but he could not handle more than 1 beer. And after he's had 1 beer, he really was totally unstable. And he fell down that set of steep stairs more times. There was a door at the bottom of it, and oftentimes I would hear this thundering crash and then a door being smashed open. And I don't know how he survived. He never got a broken limb out of it. And that was after 1 beer. And so I think it was amazing that he made it. But he did. He lived to grand old age.